Well, we're looking at the air conditioning units on the top of the fifth wheel here because they don't seem to be blowing very cold air. So it appears like some of them might be working, but not all of them. So we're just doing an inspection of all the units. We already tore apart the first one, but we're going to show you guys what we do on the second one here. Basically, there's two coil systems inside these units. One is is on the hot side of the compressor, which kind of works as a radiator and helps cool that gas down before it goes to the compressor. And the other set of coils is where the hot or where the cold side of the compressor is, and that the fan blows through those coils to push the cold air down inside. So we're just going to check both of those today. We're just going to take this apart and inspect it, probably run it while we got the cover off to make sure that the cold side of the compressor is getting cold and the hot side, you know, is hot obviously. But yeah, we're just taking a look and seeing what we can find out here. So first thing you got to do on these, I mean, I'm sure all of them are a little bit different, but I'm sure they're all designed very similar. These are Coleman units here, but there's 4 screws on the top. You just have to take those off to get the top off. So take those off, we'll put them in here so we don't lose them. And then this just lifts straight off. So should just be able to kind of finagle it off of there. Just like that. Set that aside. All right. And you probably can't really see very well, but it is pretty filthy. I mean, this thing here gets pretty dirty, so we're going to clean all that off. Oh, it's interesting. So this compressor, this is probably not really causing any functional issues, but we'll test it and make sure it's working. And then this side here, we're going to take all the screws off here and fold this back so we can take a look at the other fan unit there. So there are several screws on this unit down the side here, and then there's a couple in the back on both sides. There's 2 screws here in the front that you don't have to take out. They actually are attaching the control panel on the inside there. So these 2 you don't need to remove, but we'll get all the other ones off and then I'll show you how we flip it back here. So. All right, we got all the screws off. If you start at these top corners here, kind of work it up a little bit. Careful, this is very sharp. It's very raw edge aluminum, so don't cut yourself. Now let's fold that back like that. So like I said, those 2 screws in the middle hold this control panel on, so you don't need to be doing anything with that. So, or taking those screws out. So this is the inside coil here. This is kind of better protected, so it probably doesn't get as cold as, as dirty as the other one. It's really not that filthy at all. So the challenge, if you have to clean this off, you have to put something in here and plug, because this is straight down into your unit right there. That's where all the cold air blows. This fan here actually has 2 fans. This motor runs the fan here to help this radiate the hot the hot gas before it goes back to the compressor. And then there's a fan underneath here that's blowing this direction that blows across the cold unit here to get the cold air down into the unit. So anyway, that is yeah, I could be saying that wrong actually. I think it actually pulls the air from here. This probably sucks the air in and then pushes it down underneath us here, because that's the actual air intake. So, but anyway, this is the cold side. It has to run the air through that to get it down in. So there's also a couple units down here, capacitors and stuff. So if your compressor's not kicking on, it could be a bad capacitor. But we're going to check that out now and see how that works. So we'll come back in a second here after we turn this unit on and see how everything's going. All right, so we got the unit running now, and then if you want to get in here closer. So like I said, this is the cold side. You can see these tubes. See how they're frosting up there? That's a good thing, because that means it's getting nice and cold. That means the compressor is working and compressing the what is it? It's R393, I think, refrigerant in these. So you can feel the fat pipe here where it's colder, and this is actually starting to freeze up a little bit because there's not enough air going over it because I have this open. So I'm going to close this up so we can get the airflow working properly in there. So good news is air compressor's kicking on. It's cooling. So I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and clean this. We're going to shut this off, and I'm going to clean this with, I just use power, this Dawn power wash, but we'll clean that real good. The other one really wasn't that very dirty, so yeah, we'll see if these things run a little bit better and keep up with the hot weather we're having. So so this has got a bunch of dirt down in here. I'm going to get out. Screwdriver. One thing you got to be careful when you're pulling these off, though, this is a great place for like wasps and bees and stuff to create nests and shit. So you might want to make sure that, just be careful when you're pulling them off. Make sure there's not a hornet's nest down in there that you're dealing with. So we were lucky here on ours, but you never know. I'm just going to spray this down real good, let it set for a few minutes, and then we'll rinse it off. And then when you're using water on these things, you want to make sure you don't get them all up the motor and all that kind of stuff. So also, this is a big hole right into your RV, so make sure that you're not getting too much water shoved up underneath there that's dripping down in. So we'll be real careful when we kind of rinse it off here, but we'll let it set for a few minutes first. All right, so we've been letting this soak for a little while on the Dawn power wash. We're just going to rinse it off a little bit. So you don't need a lot of water. I would just use a little bit to rinse it down. That power wash is pretty foamy stuff. So. On this particular unit, it kind of pools up, some of the water pools up underneath here into the fan, so I'm just going to make sure that, I don't know, just for my own comfort, I want to put this rag up in here and kind of soak it up a little bit. I don't want that splashing around like crazy when I turn this thing on and splashing back into the motor or some nonsense. So kind of sop this up a little bit under here. I want to make sure you disconnect the power to these units. I mean, ours are not turned on, but you definitely don't want it turning on or kicking on when you got your hands in here. That would not be fun. All right, that's much better. All right, so we're gonna put the top back on this thing and then go to the next one. Make sure that it's functioning properly. And this goes on just like it came off pretty much. You just kind of wiggle it back on there. Put the screws back on. right, so we just happen to have like 3 identical units on our rig. So what I am going to do when I get all that last one off, I'm going to take some pictures of some of the capacitors and the label on the inside just in case I have any more issues.